She never bragged, never spoke of her past. But when her old call sign echoed across the comms tower, the SEALs froze mid-drill. Only legends earn a name like that. Lieutenant Commander Sarah "Doc" Martinez had been assigned to Naval Special Warfare Training Center in Coronado for exactly 11 weeks. At 5 feet 6 inches with raven black hair always secured in a regulation bun and intense dark eyes that seemed to catalog everything while revealing nothing, she moved through her nursing duties with the kind of professional efficiency that made her practically invisible to most personnel. She carried her medical kit with practiced precision, treated injuries with clinical excellence, and maintained the kind of low profile that characterized the most effective military medical officers. To the SEAL candidates and training staff, she was simply their assigned medical officer, competent, reliable, and completely unremarkable. The candidates knew her only by her formal title and role. Ma'am, when they needed to address her directly. Nurse Martinez, when they talked about her among themselves, or Doc, in the casual way that military personnel refer to medical staff. None of them had ever wondered about her background, her previous assignments, or what experiences had shaped her into the medical officer they saw every day. She was medical support, nothing more, someone who kept them healthy enough to continue their brutal training regimen. Lieutenant Commander Martinez's daily routine was predictable and professional. She arrived early, reviewed candidate medical files, attended training briefings to understand the day's evolution and potential injury risks, positioned herself strategically during training exercises, and provided immediate medical care when needed. Her competence was unquestioned, her professionalism was absolute, and her presence was taken for granted by everyone at the facility. But assumptions can be dangerous, especially when they're made about people whose true backgrounds remain carefully hidden. Welcome to Silent Salute, where we discover that extraordinary capabilities often hide behind the most ordinary professional roles. Before we continue this incredible story, tell us in the comments which country you're watching from today. And if you believe that the most dangerous assumptions are those we make about people who seem to fit perfectly into expected roles, hit that subscribe button to support our channel. We're honored to share these remarkable stories with you. Class 289 was particularly challenging. 28 candidates from diverse military backgrounds, all pushing themselves through training designed to identify and develop America's most elite warriors. The daily routine was relentless, brutal physical conditioning, advanced weapons training, underwater demolition exercises, tactical simulations, and psychological challenges that tested every aspect of human endurance and determination. Through it all, Lieutenant Commander Martinez provided medical support with the same steady competence that had characterized her entire assignment. The candidates had developed their standard assumptions about her role and capabilities. She was professional medical support who ensured they remained healthy enough to continue training. Her medical knowledge was comprehensive, her emergency response skills were excellent, and her ability to handle training-related injuries was unquestioned. But she was also remarkably reserved, speaking only when necessary for medical purposes and never engaging in the casual conversations that typically develop between medical personnel and the candidates they supported. Among the candidates was Chief Petty Officer Ryan "Thunder" Davis, a former Navy explosive ordnance disposal specialist who'd served multiple combat deployments before applying for SEAL training. Davis was respected by his fellow candidates for his technical expertise and steady nerves under pressure, but he shared the common assumption that medical personnel operated outside the warrior culture that defined special operations. Doc Martinez knows her medical stuff, Davis had commented to his teammate during their 9th week, but she's probably the most reserved medical officer I've ever worked with. Professional as hell, but you never get any sense of who she actually is beyond the nursing degree. Petty Officer First Class Miguel Santos, who'd served as a Navy hospital corpsman before SEAL training, offered some perspective. Some medical officers are just focused on maintaining professional boundaries, Davis. Doesn't mean they don't understand what we're doing out here. But Davis's observation was accurate. Lieutenant Commander Martinez's professional distance was unusual even for military medical personnel. Most doctors and nurses developed some level of personal rapport with the personnel they supported, but Lieutenant Commander Martinez maintained a clinical detachment that seemed almost impersonal. The situation that would change everything began during the 11th week of training when Class 289 was scheduled for advanced maritime operations exercises. This was one of the most intense phases of SEAL training, where candidates learned sophisticated underwater combat techniques, demolition procedures, and tactical operations that could mean the difference between life and death in operational environments. Lieutenant Commander Martinez was assigned to provide medical support for the training evolution, positioned at her standard observation point, where she could monitor candidates for signs of injury while remaining ready to respond immediately to medical emergencies. Her role was essentially what it had always been: professional medical oversight and emergency response capability. The training was being conducted at the Advanced Maritime Facility, with realistic scenarios that tested every aspect of candidate capability. The exercises were carefully controlled, with multiple safety protocols and experienced instructors supervising every phase of the complex training evolution. The morning session had proceeded normally, with candidates demonstrating proficiency in underwater navigation, demolition techniques, and tactical swimming procedures. Lieutenant Commander Martinez maintained her standard medical oversight, monitoring vital signs and environmental factors that could affect candidate safety during the demanding underwater operations. During the afternoon briefing session, candidates were receiving instruction on advanced tactical communication procedures that would be essential for coordinating complex operations in hostile environments. The training included live radio communications with various military units to simulate realistic operational coordination requirements. Lieutenant Commander Martinez was positioned at her standard medical station, monitoring candidate health status while listening to the communication training with professional interest. Her attention was focused on potential medical risks associated with the upcoming underwater exercises rather than the tactical communication procedures being demonstrated. The communications instructor, Master Chief Petty Officer Johnson, was conducting live radio checks with various units to demonstrate proper protocol and tactical coordination procedures. The radio crackled with routine military communications as different units confirmed their operational status and readiness for training support. Coronado Base, this is Training Unit Alpha, conducting communications check for maritime operations exercise, Master Chief Johnson transmitted, following standard protocol for coordinating training activities with supporting units. Training Unit Alpha, this is Coronado Base. We copy your transmission. Be advised, Special Operations Support Unit is standing by for emergency response if required, came the reply from base operations. The routine communications continued as various supporting units confirmed their readiness to provide assistance during the challenging underwater training evolution. Lieutenant Commander Martinez continued her medical preparations, ensuring that emergency response equipment was properly positioned and that evacuation procedures were clearly established. Training Unit Alpha, this is Navy Special Warfare Group 1 Operations Center, came another voice over the radio system. We have personnel monitoring your exercise. If you need any specialized support, request through normal channels. Master Chief Johnson acknowledged the transmission and continued with the communications training, explaining to candidates how proper radio protocol could mean the difference between successful mission coordination and catastrophic failure in operational environments. The routine training communications were interrupted when a different voice came across the radio frequency, deeper, more authoritative, with the unmistakable tone of someone accustomed to command responsibilities in the most dangerous operational environments. Any station, this is DEVGRU Operations requesting status update on training exercise Bravo 7. We have personnel in the area and need confirmation of current training activities. DEVGRU, Development Group, was the official designation for SEAL Team 6, the most elite and classified unit within Naval Special Warfare. Their involvement in routine training exercises was unusual and immediately captured the attention of everyone in the briefing room. Master Chief Johnson responded with appropriate military courtesy and operational security awareness. DEVGRU Operations, this is Training Unit Alpha. We are conducting routine maritime operations training with Class 289. Exercise parameters are contained within designated training areas. Training Unit Alpha, understood. Be advised, we have operational personnel who may be familiar with your training staff. Request confirmation of medical support personnel on site. Johnson looked around the briefing room, noting the various support personnel, including Lieutenant Commander Martinez, who had been listening to the communications with professional interest but no apparent personal connection to the DEVGRU inquiry. DEVGRU operations. We have standard medical support provided by Lieutenant Commander Martinez, assigned medical officer for current training evolution. There was a pause in communications that seemed longer than normal tactical coordination would require. When the voice returned, it carried a different quality, recognition mixed with what sounded like amazement and profound respect. Did you say Lieutenant Commander Martinez? Can you confirm the medical officer's full name? Johnson looked directly at Lieutenant Commander Martinez with obvious curiosity about why DEVGRU operations would require specific identification of routine training medical support. DEVGRU operations medical support is provided by Lieutenant Commander Sarah Martinez, assigned to Naval Special Warfare Training Center. The pause that followed was even longer, and when the voice returned, it carried emotional weight that seemed completely disproportionate to routine training coordination. The tone suggested recognition of someone whose reputation exceeded normal military personnel identification procedures. Training Unit Alpha, please relay to Lieutenant Commander Martinez that DEVGRU Operations sends respects to Phoenix. The single word hit the briefing room like a thunderclap. Phoenix wasn't a name. It was clearly a military call sign, the kind of operational identifier used only in the most classified and dangerous military missions. But more importantly, it was a call sign that carried obvious significance for DEVGRU operations personnel. Every candidate and instructor in the briefing room turned to stare at Lieutenant Commander Martinez, whose carefully maintained professional composure was beginning to show stress fractures under the unexpected recognition that had just been broadcast to the entire training facility. Lieutenant Commander Martinez's response was barely audible, her voice carrying emotional weight that no one at the training facility had ever heard before. Please relay to DEVGRU operations that Phoenix acknowledges and sends respects in return. The communications continued with routine tactical coordination, but the atmosphere in the briefing room had been completely transformed. The reserved medical officer they'd known for weeks had just been recognized by SEAL Team 6 operations, addressed by what was clearly an operational call sign, and treated with the kind of respect typically reserved for legendary special operations personnel. Davis approached Lieutenant Commander Martinez with obvious curiosity and growing respect. Ma'am, that DEVGRU operator seemed to know you by call sign. Have you worked with SEAL Team 6 before? Lieutenant Commander Martinez's response was carefully measured, understanding that the radio communication had already revealed more about her background than she had intended to disclose. I've crossed paths with DEVGRU personnel in previous assignments. But Master Chief Johnson, who had witnessed the entire communication exchange, was beginning to understand that Lieutenant Commander Martinez's background might be significantly more complex than her current medical assignment would suggest. Ma'am, DEVGRU operations doesn't typically know routine training medical personnel by call sign. That level of recognition suggests operational relationship rather than administrative familiarity. Santos stepped forward with obvious respect and curiosity. Lieutenant Commander Martinez, if you don't mind me asking, what was your previous assignment before medical duty at the training center? Lieutenant Commander Martinez seemed to be weighing how much information to share, understanding that the DEVGRU recognition had fundamentally changed her ability to maintain anonymity about her background and qualifications. My previous assignments involved specialized operations that required both medical and tactical capabilities, she replied carefully, attempting to provide context without revealing classified information about specific missions or operational details. The briefing room atmosphere had shifted from routine training coordination to focused attention on understanding how their medical officer had earned recognition from the most elite special operations unit in the military. The candidates and instructors were beginning to realize that assumptions about her background and capabilities might have been completely incorrect. Johnson pressed for additional context, his curiosity reflecting professional interest in understanding how medical personnel could earn operational call signs from DEVGRU. Ma'am, earning a call sign like Phoenix typically requires participation in classified operations. Can you provide any additional context about your operational background? Lieutenant Commander Martinez's carefully constructed cover identity was beginning to collapse under scrutiny that had been triggered by unexpected recognition from personnel who knew her true background and qualifications. Master Chief, I can say that my previous assignments required integration of medical expertise with tactical operations in environments where traditional medical support wasn't available or sufficient for mission requirements. The conversation was interrupted when the facility's emergency communication system activated with urgent electronic tones that instantly transformed the routine training environment into a high-priority crisis situation requiring immediate response from all available personnel. All personnel, emergency alert. Real-world incident at Training Area Charlie. Multiple casualties requiring immediate medical response. This is not a drill. Lieutenant Commander Martinez was on her feet before the announcement finished, her professional medical training automatically triggering emergency response protocols. But something in her movement pattern suggested preparation for more than routine medical emergency response. Her positioning and equipment check reflected tactical awareness that went beyond standard medical training. Davis stared at the transformation in Lieutenant Commander Martinez's demeanor, noting the shift from routine medical support to something much more focused and tactically oriented. Ma'am, what's our response protocol for real-world emergencies during training? Lieutenant Commander Martinez was already moving toward the emergency medical equipment, her actions reflecting systematic preparation for crisis response that suggested extensive experience with emergency situations under combat conditions. We establish medical treatment area, prepare for multiple casualty evacuation, and coordinate with emergency response teams for transportation to appropriate medical facilities, she replied. But her preparation routine included equipment and procedures that seemed to exceed standard medical emergency response protocols. The emergency response vehicles arrived at Training Area Charlie within minutes, revealing a situation that had escalated beyond routine training accidents. An explosive ordnance training exercise had gone seriously wrong, with multiple candidates suffering various degrees of injury from an accidental detonation that had exceeded safety parameters and overwhelmed standard training medical support capabilities. Lieutenant Commander Martinez assessed the tactical situation with professional competence that immediately impressed the emergency response personnel who had arrived expecting to coordinate with routine training medical support rather than someone whose capabilities appeared to exceed standard military medical training. I need immediate triage area established 50 meters from the blast site, evacuation routes cleared for multiple ambulance access, and communication with trauma centers for surgical preparation. She directed with authority that seemed completely inconsistent with her previous role as routine training medical support. Santos, who had been assigned to assist with the emergency response, stared at Lieutenant Commander Martinez's tactical coordination capabilities with growing amazement. Ma'am, where did you learn emergency response coordination at this level? Lieutenant Commander Martinez was simultaneously treating wounded candidates while coordinating complex emergency response that involved multiple agencies and specialized medical capabilities, her performance revealing experience that far exceeded routine military medical training. Previous operational assignments required medical response under combat conditions where multiple casualties and tactical constraints demanded integration of medical and operational capabilities. She replied while providing expert trauma care to seriously injured personnel. The emergency response she coordinated was textbook perfect, a combination of medical expertise, tactical awareness, and operational coordination that demonstrated extensive experience in complex emergency situations under high-stress conditions. Her decisions were rapid, accurate, and designed to maximize survival rates while coordinating resources efficiently. Within 2 hours, Lieutenant Commander Martinez had successfully coordinated treatment and evacuation of all casualties, established effective communication with receiving medical facilities, and restored normal training operations with minimal disruption to ongoing programs. Her emergency response performance had been flawless and had exceeded the capabilities expected from routine training medical support. Master Chief Johnson approached Lieutenant Commander Martinez after the successful emergency response, his expression reflecting amazement at the medical and tactical competence she had demonstrated during the crisis situation. Ma'am, that was some of the most professional emergency response coordination I've seen in 20 years of military service. Your integration of medical and tactical capabilities suggests operational experience that goes far beyond standard military medical training. Lieutenant Commander Martinez was securing emergency medical equipment while responding, her actions reflecting systematic preparation for resuming normal training operations despite the significant disruption caused by the real-world emergency incident. Master Chief, emergency medical response in military environments requires understanding of both medical and tactical requirements. You can't provide effective medical care if you can't coordinate resources and manage tactical constraints simultaneously. Davis approached with obvious respect and curiosity about the operational background that had enabled Lieutenant Commander Martinez to demonstrate such exceptional emergency response capabilities during a crisis that could have resulted in multiple fatalities without expert medical coordination. Lieutenant Commander, your emergency response demonstrated capabilities that suggest extensive operational experience. Would you be willing to share more details about your background and previous assignments? Lieutenant Commander Martinez's response reflected careful balance between acknowledging military service and maintaining operational security about classified missions and sensitive information that remained protected by security classifications and personal privacy preferences. My previous assignments involved providing medical support for special operations missions where conventional medical support wasn't available and where mission success required integration of medical expertise with tactical capabilities and operational coordination. The emergency response had revealed capabilities that fundamentally changed how training personnel viewed Lieutenant Commander Martinez and her potential contributions to SEAL training programs that could benefit from her obvious expertise in complex emergency medical operations under high-stress conditions. Commander Patricia Wilson, the training center's executive officer, arrived to conduct after-action assessment of the emergency response and evaluate how a serious training accident had been managed so effectively with minimal casualties and rapid restoration of normal operations. The emergency response coordination was exceptional, Wilson told Johnson during her operational review. The medical officer's performance prevented what could have been multiple fatalities and demonstrated emergency response capabilities that exceeded our standard training medical support protocols. Johnson's response ensured that appropriate credit was given for the exceptional emergency response performance that had saved lives and demonstrated medical and tactical capabilities that could enhance SEAL training programs. Ma'am, Lieutenant Commander Martinez coordinated the entire emergency response. Her integration of medical expertise with tactical coordination made the successful operation possible and prevented serious casualties that could have resulted from delayed or inadequate medical response. Wilson looked at Lieutenant Commander Martinez with obvious interest, reviewing her personnel file while trying to reconcile her routine medical assignment with the exceptional emergency response capabilities she had just demonstrated. Lieutenant Commander Martinez, your emergency response performance was outstanding. Your coordination of complex medical and tactical operations suggests background and experience that might be valuable for enhancing our training programs. Would you be willing to discuss expanding your role beyond routine medical support? Lieutenant Commander Martinez considered the question carefully, understanding that the DEVGRU recognition and emergency response had revealed capabilities that could contribute to SEAL training in ways that had never been available before. Commander Wilson, I believe my operational experience could contribute to developing more realistic training scenarios that better prepare candidates for medical emergencies under combat conditions where conventional support isn't available. Wilson was clearly intrigued by the possibilities. Lieutenant Commander, what specific aspects of training could benefit from your operational experience? Integration of medical and tactical training, emergency response under hostile conditions, casualty evacuation in denied territory, and decision-making protocols when medical and tactical requirements must be balanced under extreme stress conditions. Wilson understood that Lieutenant Commander Martinez was offering to share training methodologies and operational insights that came from providing medical support during some of the most dangerous and classified missions in the special operations community. 2 days later, additional information about Lieutenant Commander Martinez's background began emerging through official channels and informal discussions with personnel who had appropriate security clearances to access classified service records and operational histories. Her previous assignments had included service as Senior Medical Officer for Joint Special Operations Command's most classified units, providing tactical medical support for operations that remain protected by the highest levels of security classification. Her call sign, Phoenix, had been earned through multiple operations where she had provided life-saving medical care under combat conditions that exceeded the capabilities of conventional medical support. What we're learning, Commander Wilson explained to the training staff, is that Lieutenant Commander Martinez represents the highest level of special operations medical capability, with experience in operations that most military medical personnel never encounter and training that integrates medical expertise with tactical proficiency at levels that exceed standard military medical education. Lieutenant Commander Martinez worked with the training staff to develop enhanced medical training scenarios that tested candidates' ability to provide emergency medical care under combat conditions, coordinate complex casualty evacuation operations, and make life-and-death medical decisions while managing tactical constraints and operational requirements. The operations I supported, Lieutenant Commander Martinez explained to the candidates, required understanding that effective military medicine in special operations environments demands integration of medical expertise with tactical capabilities, operational coordination, and decision-making under extreme stress conditions where conventional medical protocols are insufficient. Her training scenarios included realistic medical emergency situations where candidates had to provide trauma care while under fire, coordinate casualty evacuation through hostile territory, and balance medical requirements with tactical objectives during complex operations where mission success and personnel survival depended on seamless integration of medical and combat capabilities. The emergency response training programs that Lieutenant Commander Martinez developed were eventually adopted throughout Naval Special Warfare Command, establishing new standards for integrated medical tactical capability that enhanced the effectiveness of special operations medical support worldwide. But perhaps Lieutenant Commander Martinez's greatest contribution was demonstrating that true operational excellence required integration of medical expertise with tactical proficiency and operational coordination rather than narrow specialization in traditional medical roles that didn't reflect the realities of special operations environments. The story of Lieutenant Commander Phoenix Martinez became legendary at the training facility, shared with new classes as an example of how extraordinary operational capabilities often hide behind routine professional assignments, and how the most valuable personnel are often those whose true experience and qualifications remain carefully concealed until circumstances require their expertise. The most important lesson you can learn here, instructors would tell new candidates, is that exceptional capability often comes in unexpected forms. The person providing medical support might be someone whose operational experience exceeds your own training and whose expertise could save your life in situations where conventional medical support would be inadequate. Years later, when Lieutenant Commander Martinez transitioned to other assignments, her legacy lived on in the enhanced training programs she had developed and in the understanding that true professional excellence often requires maintaining operational security about capabilities and experience that could compromise ongoing operations or personal safety. Her story reminded everyone that in special operations, as in life, the most dangerous assumptions are those we make about people who seem to fit perfectly into expected roles. Because the most exceptional people are often those who choose to hide their extraordinary capabilities behind ordinary professional responsibilities until the moment when their expertise becomes essential for mission success or personnel survival. Lieutenant Commander Martinez's call sign, Phoenix, became synonymous with the integration of medical and tactical excellence, representing the highest standards of special operations medical capability and the understanding that the most effective medical personnel are those who can provide life-saving care while operating effectively in the most dangerous and challenging environments where conventional medical support would fail. The moment when DEVGRU operations had acknowledged Phoenix over the radio had lasted only seconds, but its impact continued for years, reminding everyone that extraordinary capabilities often hide behind the most ordinary professional appearances, and that the people we take for granted may be the ones whose expertise and experience could prove essential when conventional approaches fail and lives depend on exceptional competence emerging from unexpected sources. This story was brought to you by Silent Salute. Before we leave you today, here's our question. Have you ever discovered that someone you knew in a routine professional capacity actually possessed extraordinary experience or capabilities that they kept hidden? Have you encountered people whose true backgrounds were far more remarkable than their current roles suggested? Tell us in the comments about the moments when you realized you'd been working alongside someone whose experience exceeded your own understanding. And if you believe that the most exceptional people are often those who don't need to advertise their capabilities, hit that subscribe button to support our channel. Every story reminds us that extraordinary abilities often hide behind ordinary professional roles, and that the people we notice least may be the ones with the most to teach us. We'll see you in the next story, where we'll discover another incredible tale of hidden expertise and unexpected revelation.